Welcome to Reframe the Future, the series in which we discuss the latest trends and future directions of travel and healthcare with the individuals and organisations that are making an impact. Today we're here to discuss the importance of trustworthy health information. And we are delighted to be joined today by Dan Wills, who's the Quality Mark Manager at the Patient Information Forum. Health information needs to be authentic and reliable, with the source of information clear, so that patients and the public can make good decisions about their health and their care. That's why we at Aurora are delighted to have been awarded the PIF TICK, the UK's only assessed quality mark for print and online health information, by the non-profit organisation, the Patient Information Forum. Dan, you're very welcome. Could you start please by just telling us a little bit about your background, the Patient Information Forum and its purpose?
Yeah, so my background is I've been assessing health information for nearly 15 years now. I started off with Department of Health and NHS England doing the information standard as an ops manager, and then moved into assessing and then kind of progressed from there, and then joined PIF when they started the PIF TICK. PIF, the Patient Information Forum, has been around since 1997. They were originally a group of charities and commercial organisations that got together to help each other create good quality information and share best practice, and it's evolved over time. We now have over 300 organisations involved with PIF and over 1,300 individuals that actively use our website and are in membership. And in 2020, in the middle of the lovely COVID outbreak that we had, we launched our PIF TICK scheme, which may not have sounded the most sensible time to do it, but actually really put a highlight on mis and disinformation. And that was exactly what the PIF TICK is here to combat. So timing wise, it did kind of work out okay for us in the end. So yeah, that's kind of a very brief background of what PIF Patient Information Forum is and my background in health information.
Sure, and you mentioned mis and disinformation there for the purposes of our viewers. Could you just explain the kind of nuanced difference there?
Yeah, so misinformation in our eyes is information that is just a little bit inaccurate or not quite 100% correct for whatever reason. Maybe you can't get to the evidence sources that you want. Maybe you misinterpreted something. Disinformation is when you're deliberately trying to send somebody down a path that benefits you or a political view or anything like that. So that's the distinct difference between the two.
Okay, that's brilliant. And could you give us an example of misinformation or disinformation that you've encountered, a specific example, and what the impact of that was?
Yeah, so we did a piece of work with the Patients Association on shared decision making. And one of the big factors when you're going for any kind of treatment is your BMI. And there was a lot of information that went out that said this is an inaccurate way of looking at your health. You shouldn't be doing it. It's completely discredited. And actually, that wasn't right. To put it into the full context of where they were getting those resources from is it is most commonly used for any risk factor when you're having surgery. And it led to us actually creating a new BMI public-facing piece of information to try and combat that misinformation that was out there about the risks of using BMI and that it shouldn't be used and things like that. So that's one that we personally as PIF have had to kind of look at and thought we need to address that. That's something that's really been taken out of context there and used wrongly.
I guess conversely then, what groups of people are most impacted by misinformation and why?
So everybody can really be impacted by it, but those with a low health literacy level or that are more vulnerable seem to have more of an impact on it. Those people that are likely to experience health inequalities for whatever reason. So that could be that they are young, that they don't have English as a first language, that they've got some sort of disability. All of those people are at a higher risk of it. There's also that misconception, I think, around a lot of people that young people have the ability to get digital information really easily. They understand technology. But actually, is that enough to be able to interpret health information. So we know Superdrug did a survey on misinformation on TikTok in particular, and so many young people use it, they might not be aware that there isn't that level of check-in on there. That actually, just because you follow, let's say, somebody called Dave on TikTok, you don't actually know Dave. You've got no relationship with him. Is the information he's giving you right? So, yes, younger generation might be very tech savvy and able to use it, but they're still very susceptible because they don't know the barriers that maybe aren't there to preventing misinformation. So it really can impact anybody for various different reasons. And I think that's why it's important that, you know, we have things like the PIF tick that kind of control all of those aspects. And it's not just focusing on, is it medically correct? Because it's actually about accessibility, understanding of it, where you're getting that information from. So all of those things have a massive impact on mis and disinformation.
Brilliant, and that you brought me on to my next question quite nicely there, which is about the PIF tick and how exactly that works, and what types of organisations are members.
So the PIF tick, like I said earlier, has been around since 2020. It was to fill a void left when NHS England's info standard stopped assessing information in that way. PIF did a survey before we launched the PIF tick to understand what people are looking for with health information. And really the only thing that people wanted was a quality mark, a simple to understand quality mark from their point that says somebody trustworthy has looked at it. So the first thing we wanted to do was to have that recognised kite mark, and a tick is a nice, obvious way of showing somebody's done it. So we had the tick and then we called it the PIF tick. It was really kind of there to help charities create better quality information. And it's not a scheme that is a yes, no, it's a journey. And it's all about improving that information. And we have all sorts of organisations involved. We have very small charities. We have very large commercial organisations, large charities like Mind, Macmillan, Cancer Research. We've got hospitals like Guy's and St Thomas involved, organisations like Bupa, like yourselves. It's not limited to anybody in particular. We will help you on your journey, regardless of what your process, how complex it looks like, and how you produce that information. And I think for me and my background, it is that journey that you go on rather than just waving that certificate at the end. It's about helping you get to the best quality information for your patients.
That's brilliant. Thanks so much, Dan. I think just reflecting, having just been through the development of our process at Aurora, I think it's been really, really helpful in helping us to think through, I guess, some of the more of the nuances or intricacies around some of these things. It's helped us to formalise processes that we were maybe doing things informally, but not in a way that was kind of official across the agency. And I think it's been brilliant for our team because it's meant that everybody is getting a kind of consistent approach to how they're creating our health information now, which has been really helpful and valuable for everybody. So it is a fantastic process that I would certainly recommend for any agency or charity or pharmaceutical company indeed to look to go through.
That's lovely. Thank you for that feedback.
Not at all. And then I just wanted to touch on one of your, I guess, more recent developments. We've seen, obviously, through social media, the rise of health influencers, and maybe there's been some regrettable examples where celebrities have been providing health or medical advice online without the qualification to do so. So you've developed this PIF tick for individuals. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you're hoping to achieve with that?
Yeah, so I think exactly what you've just kind of explained there is this rise in people using social media now to get their health information. Certainly what we've seen is that people will go wherever they're comfortable going. So if you are a YouTube user, you will look on YouTube to fix your car and fix yourself with your health information. So it's really important that our accreditation goes where people are going. So yeah, we've worked with YouTube, we've worked with NHS England, and what we've developed is some criteria that sits alongside the criteria that they have. So the YouTube Health Shelf and NHS England's info standards that they've got now to really assess what those individuals are doing. And it's open to anybody that creates information in their own right. So you could create YouTube videos, you could create blogs, you could create TikTok, it could be social media posts, and it's around helping them do the right thing. And a lot of these people are wanting to help patients. One of the beautiful things that we heard during the pilot was we had a GP that got involved, and over the New Year period, they couldn't see everybody that they wanted to see. So a lot of those common kind of conditions, they created a video, shared it, and actually now everybody didn't need to come and see them. So it freed up some of their time, and that was wonderful for us. But there's got to be some way of recognizing who is trusted, who isn't, who's creating evidence-based information and who isn't. And that's what we're trying to achieve with the PIF TICK, is that really quick, recognizable way for users to go, I've got all of these videos, they're the ones that I should be trusting, regardless of whether you know that GP or that person that's providing that information.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Dan. And I just wanted to switch gears for a moment and look a bit towards the future, and what does the future when it comes to health information look like? And maybe you might have an optimistic view or a pessimistic view of this. It would be great to hear both. And I'm thinking particularly about, I guess, implications of new technologies like artificial intelligence and any other relevant factors that you see playing a role.
Yeah, so I'll try and give you both views, the optimistic and the pessimistic, to be balanced. So I think the optimistic view is AI could help healthcare information providers do a little bit less, but that would have to be around things like translating, doing the initial searches for health information. The flip side, the pessimistic view is AI at the moment just isn't ready to be doing health information. It can't distinguish between a good source and a bad source. It could peddle more misinformation if it's taking what's popular and misinformation is popular. It could repeat any bias that it's seeing coming through. And it will also potentially take away from some of the charities when it is, let's say Google goes completely AI and you type in there, how do I deal with X, Y, and Z condition? It will filter in the background and then it will provide that information. What if that information has come from Diabetes UK, Macmillan's, Breast Cancer Now, Teenage Cancer Trust? They're not going to get that recognition. Without that, those charities are going to lose potentially the funding that they've got, the want to create that information, and that pool that people are going to be able to look for is going to get smaller. So I think it can be a great help to people that are creating it, but we've got to use it in the right way. And I think if we don't, we are running that risk of it's taking over and people are going to actually not be able to create the same quality that we have at the moment.
Very interesting. I think a good reminder to everybody that we've a long way to go with AI and not to be running with it before we can walk.
Yeah, and we do have an AI position statement that's been put out that explains some of those risks. And again, that can be found on our website. It's a really useful document if you're concerned about using AI. What exactly is AI? It's a term that we're all kind of using now. But if you think about it, Google Translate, that's been around for ages, is kind of AI. Grammarly, spell checkers, all of that are kind of a version of AI. So it's around thinking, trying to build up your trust in what it is and using it appropriately. So I do recommend anybody that's considering getting involved in AI to have a look at that position statement.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's a brilliant resource to have available. I just wanted to finish with one question around, I guess, the role of various different stakeholders in healthcare, because I think it's clear from this conversation that health misinformation is a complex topic. It's one that is caused maybe by many factors. And I guess there's a lot of stakeholders in healthcare. And if we think about patients and the public, healthcare professionals, pharmaceutical companies, technology companies, and even government and policymakers, what more can all of these stakeholders do maybe to help create a better future for, I guess, trustworthy and reliable health information?
So I'll start with kind of patients and members of the public. I think the key message, and the message we make a lot on our web content and posters that we create, is think before you share. Question where that information is coming from. Look for quality marks, maybe not just the PIF TICK, but any kind of quality mark that says somebody has vetted this. What does the producer of that information have to gain from creating it? And I think some of the really easy things to do is, has it got a date on it? If it's got dates on it, then we know how old this information is. Is there a way of contacting that organisation? And is the language clear? If there's those things on it, then you can probably be comfortable sharing it. If there's any of those kind of bits missing, would you really want to share something that could do harm to somebody else? I think for patients and the public, it's really about thinking before you just go and share mis and disinformation. What can you do to help kind of close that gate on that before you're sharing it? Healthcare professionals, I think it's really important that we signpost to trusted information, that you understand what trusted information is and help your patients find that. So again, maybe using things like our directory, going onto our website, all of those would be really good ways of helping. And we don't expect healthcare professionals to know every website and every charity that deals with it. Leave that to us. We'll control which ones are good and not and help you do that bit. I think interaction with pharmacists and pharmaceutical companies and stuff like that, it's use plain language. Make sure users are involved in the production of any of your information. Fully aware that you have to apply by ABPI guidelines and all of those kind of things, but have a look at the information that you are creating and make sure that it is really clear. There's a lot of information out there at the moment that people like Pfizer have done that look at what's good quality, what isn't, what the patients get involved in. So I think have a look at those. Tech companies, as we spoke about AI earlier, AI could be a source to be used, but I think it's really important that we're open and honest around that, that we share with people when we've used AI, what we have used AI for. I think there are some really good examples like YouTube are really trying to combat this now coming out of COVID, and they've created their health shelf. That's a really good example of trying to get people to do the right thing. I'd love to see the other social media platforms do something similar. So I think there is some good work going on, but I think we just need to think a little bit more, particularly with things like AI. And then with politicians and the government, what I would really like to see is them create a framework that kind of pulls all of this together and looks at, you know, all the different forms of media, so digital, websites. If you are a guest speaker on This Morning, it should be the same quality of information that if you're writing an article or a web page. So I think there really needs to be that framework that pulls all of that together, that recognises good quality information in whatever format that it is in. That would be really helpful.
That's fantastic, Dan. Thanks so much. I think it's really been a fascinating discussion. We clearly have a long way to go when it comes to safeguarding health information to make sure that people can really rely on it to make good, sound decisions that are going to have a really positive impact on both their health and their care. So thank you so much for sharing all of that information, and hopefully we'll continue to see your membership grow over the months and years to come.
No, lovely. Thank you for having me today. I really enjoyed it.